Hey folks, it's Richard Cooper here at TotalDebtFreedom.ca. I've got Gail Vaz-Oxlade on with me today. We had a conversation offline about Credit Education Week. She's been very vocal about her feelings on it and what she thinks of the credit score system. She's been encouraging people to follow a Facebook group called School Lenders, and she's managed to get into a little bit of a scrap with Kevin O'Leary on TV. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about what your feeling is on the movement and how things are going, Gail. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great because everything's going really well.
Awesome. Thanks so much for taking a few moments to talk to me. So, the school lender movement that you've started, why did you start that?
Because I'm royally ticked at the way lenders are lending and the fact that nobody's holding them accountable for their very bad lending decisions. I know I have been known as the person who has been telling people to take personal accountability for the fact that they're getting themselves into debt. I mean, you got yourself into debt, you got to dig yourself back out again. But I'm also seeing horrendous examples of people being handed way more rope than they need, and they're hanging themselves really high as a result.
Can you give me an example of somebody that's been given way too much rope?
Okay, so the example that I'm using for this, because this is the one that set me off, is a young man, 21 years old, earning $24,000 a year, who was given a $15,000 credit limit on his credit card by a steady Canadian bank. So everybody keeps thinking, to me, oh, that can't happen in Canada. That's probably some U.S. bank or some B bank, and it's not. It's one of our big five. And it's absolutely ridiculous because under no circumstances does he have either the character, the job stability, the personal stability, the age, nor does he have the capacity, the income, to pay that back. And so therefore, he should never have been given it.
Do you think lenders are paying attention to that message?
I'm hoping lenders are paying attention to the message. I'm hoping that financial institutions will be so surprised at people's anger. There's a lot going on in the industry right now with regard to people saying, stop with the greed, start paying attention to what used to be important to us. You have all the sit-ins and occupies and all that stuff going on. And this is a very focused attempt. This is something that's very focused. And it takes no time at all for consumers to do this because all they have to do is put away their plastic for 1 week and send one letter off. Just send a letter to your MP. And if you don't get a response, send it again.
So talk to me about the concept of freezing your credit card and the letter that you want to go out to the Member of Parliament.
Okay, so what we want to do is we want everyone to put away their credit card for 1 week from Sunday, so 2 days from now, until the following weekend, November 13th to 19th, which is officially Credit Education Week. Don't use your credit card. And it's not just a matter of the transactions you won't make on your card. It's also all the merchant fees that financial institutions will lose because people aren't shopping on their credit. It's a lot of money. If everybody does it, it's a big hit in a financial institution's pocket. So do that. And then the second thing you want to do is you want to write to your Member of Parliament. I have a letter on my website under resources that you can use as a sample. You can take what you want from it. You can use the whole thing if you want. And what you want to do is you want to start encouraging members of Parliament to table a bill that will stop the use of the credit score as the sole credit adjudication tool. Because that's the only way that lad got the money he did. He had a great credit score because he was making his minimum payments. Mm-hmm. And that's how he qualified for that much credit. The other thing is credit scores are being used for inappropriate things right now. Employers are beginning to ask job applicants to check their credit scores.
Right.
None of their freaking business.
Right.
Insurance companies are using credit scores to determine premiums on home insurance. Should not be. Inappropriate use of the credit score. We've got to stop it.
I agree. Absolutely. Now, Credit Education Week's next week. What do you feel that it should be about?
Well, Credit Education Week, by its name, should be about helping consumers understand how to use credit to their best advantage, how to take this very useful tool. Okay, I have a credit card. I use my credit card religiously. I gather up my points. I pay my balance off on time. The credit card works for me. How to use credit to their advantage. If they're in a bit of a pickle, how to focus their efforts in order to get themselves out of debt, and the various ways, the various resources that financial institutions have that can help them. That's what Credit Education Week should be about.
Did you attend it last year? Do you know what they cover?
No, I did not attend last year. I was approached last year to come and speak, but they wanted me to do it for free.
And nobody works for free, of course.
And nobody works for free. I can't work for free.
So Debbie Travis is the keynote speaker for Credit Education Week this year. As far as I know, Debbie Travis is a home decorator. She has a line of products that she sells through Canadian Tire. Like you do television shows on debt and money. She does television shows on decorating. That kind of encourages people to spend money, which is a little bit different from budgeting and preserving finances and setting aside money for a rainy day. What do you think of her as a keynote speaker?
The interesting thing is that whole gala thing isn't really about education. I'm not sure who's buying the tickets for over $120 a piece, but it's certainly nobody that needs credit education. So I think that's sort of let's entertain the industry, because that's probably who ends up going. And let's face it, they don't want someone standing there like punching them in the nose and saying, guys, cut it out. You're being rapacious.
Yeah.
And when does the greed end? So they'd much rather talk about running a successful business, because keep in mind, she's been very successful with her own production companies, and there's no question in my mind that she's a lovely lady. I've met her on several occasions. I just don't see how it's applicable to Credit Education Week.
Yeah, and that raised some other questions for me when I was looking at the list of sponsors. You've got companies like Money Mart, which has relatively high, interest rates. We were talking offline earlier about this, this new stop check or cross check discussion, which I know you've covered, before on Twitter and your blog. And then you've got a list of publicly traded companies, which are really banks, who have a fiduciary duty to return profits to their shareholders, and they're kind of in the business of loaning money. That's when they get money.
The thing is that banks are a perfectly fine example of people who should be running Credit Education Week, because they have some of the best brains working inside their organizations in terms of being able to educate consumers on what this is. And they should be producing documents and helpful tools.
Do you think they're doing enough?
Well, I'm not saying it's enough. I'm saying that's what they should be doing.
Right.
As part of their responsibility in granting credit, they should also be educating on credit. However, if that's all you have, and if you allow organizations like Money Mart into the fold, then what you are saying is, we don't really take a credit education week seriously. We're using it as propaganda. We're going to let people whitewash the role they have played in sinking Canadians into debt by letting them pretend that they're helping. Now, one of the ways you can see that as happening is if you go and look at the content on the Credit Education Week site, you will see a lot of content around everything except credit.
Right.
There is no content on credit. There is content on saving. There are tools on saving. There's no content and no tools on credit. You don't even see a credit payment calculator.
Right. Let me ask you this question. So one of the other sponsors that I noticed was the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Commission.
Yeah.
In my business, we've seen people that just have an addiction to gambling, and they'll sometimes try to enroll in our program. Is that sponsor setting the right example? I mean, what they do is they make money off the 1 in a gazillion chance of somebody becoming a millionaire. Why are they sponsoring that sort of...
Well, again, Richard, I think it's a perfect example of what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the dollars that we have earned off the backs of people, and we're going to plow it into redoing our image so that the world thinks that we're actually concerned about this. They're not concerned about it. They're more concerned about selling tickets, getting dollars in the door, making money off interest. All those sponsors are making money off doing the wrong thing. If they're doing the right thing, it's okay, right? You can give some money back to help, but they're not.
Right.
They're playing on the weaknesses of people. For example, I get letters from people telling me that things are not explained to them adequately. They are misled. I got a letter from someone who told me that her financial advisor had explicitly told her to make only the minimum payments on her credit cards because that would raise her credit score. True. Okay, that would raise her credit score, which would put her in a better position to borrow more money.
Right.
And but that goes counter to good financial stability. So what is it that we are encouraging people to do? Are we encouraging them to chase the credit score, which is the wrong thing to do, or are we encouraging them to be strong and independent and solvent?
That's a great point. Most of the people that we see that come to our company, they're usually under the impression that, well, I thought that all I had to do was make my minimum payments and I'd be out of debt one day. And then one day life happens, they get laid off, they get injured, they can't work, they have an unexpected pregnancy, they get divorced, whatever. And then they don't have a rainy day fund and they can no longer meet those obligations. One of the things that I've been talking about is the disclosure on credit card statements that say if you just make your minimum monthly payments, it's going to take this long for you to get out of debt.
Yeah.
I've talked about let's make that disclosure bigger and bolder, kind of like on a cigarette package where it says if you smoke this, your teeth are going to look like this.
Yes.
Well, do you think that credit card companies are meeting that obligation to disclose to consumers what the true cost is of making minimum monthly payments?
Of course they're not. They're doing it in order to satisfy government regulation, and the government regulations weren't enough. It's another example of the government whitewashing situation, because really what the government should be doing is the government should be stepping in and saying, you know what, you can't give credit to people who can't afford to pay you back. You have to assess them appropriately. It's one thing for you to give credit to someone and their circumstances change. But here we have financial institutions handing out credit to people they know cannot pay them back, because there's no way you can look at someone making $24,000 a year and think that they could ever hope to pay back a $15,000 debt.
Right.
It's not possible.
Right.
So, they should have stepped up and they should have done more, but they didn't. But this is the same government that offloaded the decision about payday lenders onto the provinces.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, because it used to be a federal issue, and they downshifted it to a provincial issue.
That's right.
And nobody, of course, is making the tough decision. Although in the U.S., I do have hope, because in the U.S. there are 11 states that have out and out banned payday loan companies.
Awesome. Well, Gail, it's been great talking to you. I share a lot of the same sentiments that frustrate you, and I know you got a busy day, so I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I'm going to link to your letter to the MP on my website, and we'll put it out to our fans on Facebook. Do you want to just mention what that link is? So it's on gailvaz-oxlade.com.
Yes, it's on gailvaz-oxlade.com under resources.
Right.
And it's the first at the top of the list.
Okay, and I'll link to that page directly on my blog for that. Thanks again for taking the time to talk to me today, Gail.
My pleasure, love. Thanks.